Hello and welcome to Insights, the podcast with your host, Joe Parnay. Join me in this deep exploration of our personal journeys from ambition to meaning, where we stop living life fast and start living life deep. This is a journey of waking up and realizing that our lives have never been about us, but about others. True success leaves positive ripple effects on other souls. I believe that success needs to be redefined from our own personal ambitious endeavors to be redefined as the value that we leave and give to others around us. Join me now as we begin this journey to deeper connections, even more fulfillment, some fun, curiosity, life, love, and all good things. Your deeper journey from ambition to meaning starts right now. Well, welcome everyone. It's Joe here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to episode 37 of Insights. This week, I've been endeared and reflected very much and endeared on this particular quote that I came across by the novelist whose name is Wendell Berry. And so the words that I want to read to you here resonate completely with the journey that I began into this whole space of coaching and human behavior and all this kind of stuff 14, 15 years ago. So see what you think, see how you connect, see whether this resonates and how this feels. Just try it on. So Wendell Berry a long time ago said, when we no longer know what to do, we have come to our real work. And when we no longer know which way to go, we have begun our real journey. I'll say that again. When we no longer know what to do, we have come to our real work. And when we no longer know which way to go, we have begun our real journey. I love this. Now, I don't know what your interpretation or what your translation of that is, but I'm happy to share with you my interpretation and translation of that, because back in 2004 or 5, thereabouts, around that kind of timeline, that's exactly what I was experiencing, is that I no longer knew what to do. Like I had my career in real estate, my career in rehab counseling. Those two careers for me were completely tapped out in terms of growth, personal growth, spiritual growth, skill set growth, responsibility growth. And I had no interest in pursuing either of those two careers any further. And I was literally at that proverbial fork in the road. I didn't know what to do. And I didn't know. I didn't know at the time that was when my real work began. Real work meaning whatever it is that you get attracted to by what's in your soul. Now, we know that Khalil Gibran, the Lebanese poet, said that when we are born, our work was placed in our hearts. And our mission is to find what that is. Now, this is the irony of decision-making and choices, is that we can't see beyond a choice that we haven't made. I think that came from the Matrix. I can't remember where I got that from, but I'll say that again. It's like we can't see beyond a choice that we haven't made. So at that point, when I was stuck at that juncture, at that precipice or whatever you want to call it, where I didn't know which way to go and what to do, all I knew was that when I came across this particular, there was a beautiful married couple, Michael and Marlies Carroll, who I still credit as a handful of people who have significantly contributed to the direction of my life, who ran back then, they're retired now, but back then in the early 2000s and late 90s, they ran a school that taught people how to meditate and provided like all of these different methodologies, processes, experiential retreats, residential retreats that would teach people essentially how to meditate, but also how to be on the road to enlightenment. So to be on that road to expanding your consciousness, to deepening your perspective, to putting conscious effort toward the journey of discovery into who you really are. You know, that archetype of spirit that Carl Jung talks about, that we're all sort of heading toward. I mean, humanistic psychology essentially says that the purpose of every man and woman is to rediscover their soul. So that's kind of the journey, I guess you could say. And back then, definitely, I no longer knew what to do. And then I didn't know that my real work began then. And then when going back to Wendell's words, when we no longer know which way to go, we have begun our real journey. Well, I had no clue. I remember so many days driving over to the other side of town here, where I was. I'll put this in inverted commas because this is not accurate, but working with Michael and Marliese in their business, I wasn't really doing much. I was pretty much there supporting and being involved in the programs because I really had no clue. I had no idea what I was doing and where I was going. And I attribute completely those, a year or two that I was doing that or experiencing those experiences of being involved in the retreats and doing all the different meditation techniques, doing the vision quest, the silent retreats and all those things, I credit completely or attribute completely. That was like a pivotal swiveling door that opened up the rest of my life that eventually led me into the coaching space. And it led me to starting my own consultancy and coaching business back in late 05, early 06. So, but by the same token, a lot of people get to these choice points. They get to these forks in the road and unfortunately are still caught up as emotional slaves to their history. Now, that's strong language, but a lot of people, and I was caught up as being a slave to my history for a long time. By history, I mean our story, our historical data, what our lifetime has shown us and apparently taught us. As people who are like, when we're stuck like that, sometimes what we do is, well, not sometimes, what we tend to do is we put more power into what other people have told us about our own lives and what's happening versus our true inner genius or our inner wisdom or our inner intuition of knowing which way to go. Now, I had no clue. Like, my logic wasn't telling me where to go. It was my emotional compass, my values, my soul that was telling me which way to go. Now, fundamentally, there are 4 parts or 4 aspects of what holds us back. So quite often people get to this precipice of not knowing which way to go, and they just reverse. They reverse their lives. They reverse back into that job they were once in. And I certainly did that myself. I mean, after spending all that time doing this incredible work, meeting amazing people in that sabbatical time that I had, that year, 15 months, whatever it was that I had off, I did reverse back into my old job. And boy, oh boy, it was awful. It was heavy. It was depressing. It was dark. It was heavy. I just couldn't bear it. And it had nothing to do with the character of the people that I was working with. They were wonderful. I just didn't belong there anymore. I didn't belong in that role anymore. And, but that was the best I could do. Why? Well, because of 4 reasons, behaviorally speaking. One of those was fear. The fear of completely not knowing what the future was holding. I mean, I remember, being so addicted to certainty because, when I was at uni, I knew, well, this is year 1. What's next year? Next year is year 2, and then there's year 3, and then I was lucky enough to go into a year 4. Then I was fortunate enough to get a job, and then in that job, well, you got the years to go with those jobs. So almost like it was a pitter patter of year by year. It was kind of sort of predictable unless I lost that job. But here I was for the first time in my life where the future was completely blank and no idea what it would mean. So I completely, deeply resonate with Wendell Berry's words when he says, and when we no longer know which way to go, we have begun our real journey. Now, this takes faith. So what happens is fear is one of those 4 things that holds us back, right? Fear of the unknown, fear of blank slate, fear of what does this mean, fear of am I going in the right direction or whatever it might be. That's the first thing. The second thing that holds us back are our own personal expectations of what our past has apparently taught us. Having realistic expectations. I say that in big inverted commas. If you could see me here, I'm just twiddling my fingers in the air, like real expectations. Like, in other words, expectations that belong to an aspect of us that belongs to the past that no longer exists. Outsourcing our thoughts on expectation based on the expectations of our parents or our old boss or, other well-intentioned people from around our lives. So we can be a slave to our history by being entrapped in limited expectation of ourselves based on what has happened or not happened in the past. The third one is reason. The reasons why this won't work, the reasons why this is ridiculous, the reasons why this is completely and utterly illogical and nonsensical. I mean, matters of the soul, matters of the heart aren't based on logic. They're based on faith. It's like reasonable thinking has its place. It's really important. It's quite linear in its own way, I guess. It's like a straight line in a way, whereas the matters of the soul are not straight lines at all. They're circles. It's a completely different world. It's a completely different ecosystem, I guess you could say. So, and then there's habits, the habits that our history has taught us to have. So the habits of, any limiting sort of habits we might have around, whatever it might be, around sabotaging our diets or sabotaging our relationships or our language, or, habits that keep us safe and keep us stuck on the wheel of procrastination, or, unresourceful habits is what I'm talking about. So fundamentally, what holds us back when we get to this place where we don't know which way to go is it's where we can be tempted to become slaves of our history, where the fear from the echoes of the past come up, expectations that we formulated probably 10 years prior to a person that no longer exists, which is us 10 years ago. There's the reasonable part of us, the logical part of us that says, come on, you need to, take responsibility and stay in this job for the rest of your life or whatever it might be. And then there's the habits that we formulated when we were a kid or when we're in our teens or maybe in our 20s that are still having a negative impact on us today. So those four things of fear, expectation, reasons, and habits all belong in the past. So embracing the future, you can't use fear, expectation, reason, and habit to move forward in matters of the soul, in matters of your spirit, in matters of your values. I was running a workshop a few weeks ago, and I said to the guys in the workshop, I said, ultimately, my personal definition of freedom is living in complete alignment to your values, which are measured by the virtues, which I spoke about, I think, in the last episode or the episode beforehand. So freedom to me is living your life genuinely, absolutely aligned to your values. And our values being our deepest desires, our emotional compass, is something that we live. Like when we live in alignment to those values, we feel emotionally well, we feel emotionally fit, we feel emotionally healthy, we feel emotionally strong, which means we can handle more of the future and the uncertainty of it. So when it comes to letting go of our past so we can embrace whatever the future holds, it is a matter of faith. It is a matter of following the emotional compass that exists within all of us. So when I reversed back into my career after doing all this incredible work in the realm of meditation, consciousness, retreats, and all these wonderful mind-stretching, heart-pounding experiences that were just incredible. And as I said, the people that I met were just incredibly beautiful. Reversing into my old career was extremely painful. It was like literally reversing a car into a fence that you haven't seen. It's like it's a shock. And so then when I found an advertisement in a local magazine promoting life coaching and Sharon Pearson and the Coaching Institute, there was no logic behind how I felt. It was just this vibe of the opposite of fear, was the opposite of expectation, the opposite of reason, the opposite of habit. It was one of, this just feels right. This is great. This is at the right time. It just feels like this is something that's genuinely exciting. And the excitement wasn't coming from the outside. It was coming from the inside. So I embraced that journey. Now, has it been difficult the first couple of years? Absolutely. And all the rest of the challenges that go with that? Absolutely. But boy, oh boy, I would be as depressed as all heck right now as a 50-year-old man and at a crisis of some kind if I hadn't have embraced that, the faith in just stepping forward into the career path of being a coach, consultant, human behavioralist, etc. So what I wanted to share with you, let me reiterate those words of Wendell Berry. When we no longer know what to do, we have come to our real work. And when we no longer know which way to go, we have begun our real journey. And that's a very elegant expression on living your dreams. And I'm always very careful when I utter those words, living your dream, because what I always share immediately is that living your dream is not for the faint of heart. It takes a lot of guts to let go of all of the fears, expectations, reasons, and habits from the past to embrace a new you. And it's a very emotional journey. I can tell you so many times in that sabbatical year when I was trying to work things out, where I wasn't even aware that I was trying to work things out. I was just following my soul blindly. It was just so grossly unfamiliar that I would be overwhelmed with emotion on so many days. Like I'd be driving into the office on the other side of town and I'd literally be crying in the car, and I'd have to pull over and just cry my guts out. And I didn't even know why I was crying. And with the wise people around me, I was guided to not to try to put a meaning in terms of what that meant. Was I going crazy? Don't bother with that. Does it mean I'm on the wrong path? Don't bother with that. Does it mean I'm on the right path? Don't bother with that. I tried to not give it any meaning, and I didn't. I just sat with the emotion and thought, well, that's just how it is. This is the journey of whatever's going on here. And I knew on a deep, deep, deep level that was really hard to put language on that this was the right move. So it was like a rebirthing or something, or a reset, or a redemption, or it was a re-spark or a reignition of some kind. And I hope that I hope and trust that in listening to this, there's something in this that resonates with you deeply, and that if you ever feel like you don't know which way to go, and which perhaps means that your real journey has begun, and you're feeling a little bit lost or a little bit lonely with that, like I have felt when I first started this journey, then please know that that's a completely normal part of the journey. And a lot of people, unfortunately, if they're busy staring at their past and being addicted to their past, and all they talk about is problems that no longer exist anymore, and their life is based on those four things that I shared. They're based on fear, expectations, reasons, and habits from the past. Well, they're going to do a lot. They're going to be expending a lot of energy to distract themselves from the responsibility to grow into who you have been destined to become. And I think the hallmark of an adult is someone who embraces the responsibility to become who you were destined to become. And that's an important journey. I think that's really important. Something else I want to share as I close this particular episode. Interestingly enough, there are so many people who are putting so much energy and effort into changing the world. And I've got to tell you, the world doesn't care. Our lives are about us. Yes, our lives are about others. Yes, the ultimate meaning in life is to be in service to humanity. Absolutely. But we can only serve to the degree that we've served ourselves. We can only love to the degree that we love ourselves. We can only trust others to the degree that we trust ourselves. So this journey, this journey of having the courage to discover who you are, to embrace your destiny of who you are destined to become, the more deeply connected and resonant you are with your own values and your own character and your own virtues, and who you are as a person matters more than anything else. And all of the ripple effects externally in the world will get taken care of along the ride. Because like children, we don't respond to what we're told to do. We respond to examples of who to become. My children don't necessarily listen to everything that I say, but boy, oh boy, I know that they're impacted by who I am as a man. In other words, I'm inadvertently, whether I know it, whether I don't know it, the way I speak with my wife, the way I speak to my wife, the way she speaks with me, the way we treat each other, we are inadvertently showing and teaching our sons how to treat other people, especially when it comes to relationships. So the point I'm making is who you are becoming matters more than anything else in life. And if, if you're expending more energy, or if you're expending all of your energy in saving something out there, then perhaps it's time that you looked within to see what it is that needs saving within you. So anyway, they're my insights for this week, and that's what I thought I'd share. And I hope you thoroughly connected with Wendell Berry's words, and I certainly did when I first read them, and I will continue to embrace those words. I think it's just so beautifully said when someone can language the haze and the cloud of what a lot of us go through in life. So All right. So thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it very much. Please remember, if you are loving and connecting, genuinely connecting with these messages, please head over to Apple Podcasts and give this a 5-star review, because in giving this podcast a 5-star review, it gets out there more to more people. So we'd dearly love if you can support me doing that. Excellent. And also, just one more housekeeping thing before we wrap up. On August the 4th and August the 5th, if you go over to joepane.com.au, my new website, on that website, if you're interested in exploring the realm of behavioral energetical profiling, I've got a free 1.5 day introduction into the world of behavioral profiling coming up on August 4, August 5, or it's on Zoom, and the details are all there on the website. So if you're curious about behavioral profiling, feel welcome to come and join me on the free introduction on August 4, August 5. All right. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed episode 37, and I'll reconnect with you in the next episode. Thanks so much. Bye for now. I'm Joe Pane, and you've been listening to Insights, the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you're thoroughly loving the journey of these messages, please feel more than welcome to leave a review, and be sure to leave a comment on what you've been learning and how useful this has been to you, and how you've been sharing this with those around you. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm looking forward to being with you again very soon in the next episode of Insights, the podcast.